live. Looks like everything is in good shape here. That spot on my face is some sunshine from outside. There is a little bit of it. Not much. We had a good day today. I went flying. And shoot, we spent close to 2 hours in the air trying all the fun things I've got to learn to do before I can solo. And I mean, some of them are kind of fun, some of them are kind of frustrating, but they're all part of flying. So anyway, I've changed my flying days to accommodate my assistant's schedule. Callum is available on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He's at school physically Thursday and Tuesday, and then does the rest of his stuff virtually. And he has some evening college classes and stuff like that. Quite busy for a young junior in high school. Welcome to all Augies worldwide, and friends too. If you're not yet subscribed, you're not yet an Augie, so go ahead and subscribe. We're 7,500 subscribers away from the magic number of 100,000, which is kind of where Google really starts to pay attention. So we'll see how that goes. Things going on with the ARRL have been announced internally, but not yet externally. That's supposed to come later. So I would imagine around the end of the month. It will certainly be in the July QST. Okay, let's see. WW4LLL, Ranger Smith, says hello. William Myers, KA8GIM, says hello to everybody. James KI5OEB is early, he says. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. K6SDW from California. Victor Echo 6 HDH, all the Augies from Alberta, Canada. King Duckford is checking in. North Central Tennessee. WA8HUB from Kettering, Ohio, suburb of Dayton. Oh, I wish we could have been there this year. You know, all things considered now, the way that if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear the masks anymore. We could have, but they didn't know that. I mean, they have to start planning Dayton like a year in advance, so we'll have it next year. And KF0CSM out of North Dakota, and Ron Champagne, Victor Echo 7. Why do chores around the acreage come before ham radio? I know, we try and get our busy work out of the way and save the best for last. Let's see, and Marshall Harrison, W4MKH, says good evening to all. And in Northern Illinois, it's finally in the 60s. It was in the 80s here today. K9GCP radio. And let's see. The K9ETE Wisconsin, Bob Darlington, N3XKB. Evening from Arkansas, KI5GZW. Dave, you were mentioned by the amateur radio YouTubers on Monday. You are just one of the guys. Well, that's interesting. I wonder, I have not followed them very much. There's a group that get together and do things. Hello from Key West, KK4FLA. I imagine it's pretty warm there and humid. Hello, Dave and all the Augies from AA7MO. KJ7HWV in Spokane Valley, Washington. I imagine it's getting warm there too. And from Colorado, KF0FOU. Hit the thumbs up. Yeah, I appreciate that. Hello, first time catching live. NA0F, well, welcome aboard. Hi, Dave. How often should I have maintenance to my antenna? Should it be yearly? Well, whatever works for you. It depends on how carefully you put your antenna up. One thing to look out for in particular is any rope involved, because most rope sold these days is sensitive to UV and starts getting soft and mushy and can break. So check ropes. If you have soldered the connections on your antenna like you soldered the coax to it, then go ahead and that's probably fine. But if you've got SO239s, you know, take the cable off, clean everything out, put it back in, and be in good shape there. Linwood Hieronymus says, hello, Dave, from KE0OG. And KI7BSJ checking in. Durango KE080L. Do you know where I could get a power supply for a Harvey Wells TBS50D, or where I could get a circuit to build my own? If you build an analog power supply, it's in theory simple. The problem is getting the transformer. Those transformers are big and expensive. And trying to build a switching power supply and get the thing so that it doesn't make a lot of noise is a really difficult proposition. MFJ has power supplies for all different 12-volt needs, all the way on up to a 75 amp power supply, which is what I use for my amplifier right there. It's a 12-volt amplifier at 75 amps. So try MFJ and sort through theirs. They've got quite a few. Oh, wow. Benjamin Otto is purchasing his first home. Congratulations. I remember getting mine in Florida when I was in the Air Force. We bought a home in 1978. And then I was released from the Air Force in 1980. And much to my surprise, the value of the homes had gone up. I got back all my payments plus some. So the net was Florida paid me to live there. And I says, okay, this is how this works. I'm going to be a homeowner from now on, and am to this day. So although we just got our valuation for the tax thing a couple days ago in the mail, and the home price went up by more than 20% from the last time it was valued. They value them every 2 years. And I don't know if it's just the real estate bubble that's going on or what, but man alive, I wouldn't pay that much for this house. But then again, what I pay for a house payment after 17 years, I could barely rent an apartment in town for. And home ownership has a lot of things that are attractive to it. So Benjamin, congratulations to you. Greetings from Silicon Valley, KJ6ER. Cooler than normal here in Tennessee. Haven't hit 70 for nearly a week. Wow. Chris KN6YU in California. And had my second shot, had a second COVID shot yesterday. Felt like I tried to beat a freight train across the tracks and ended up tied to the tracks, I guess. Yeah, I had the same experience with my second COVID shot. I spent the day in bed, the next day in bed, and then I was fine. And there have been some rule changes as of today. The CDC is constantly reevaluating all inputs, I suspect among them political, and evaluating its guidance. And it is now said, basically, if you're vaccinated, you're mask-free almost everywhere. You still got to wear masks on airplanes and stuff, and in any business that mandates it. So some businesses will mandate it. Come to Huntsville. I'd love to come to Huntsville. Greetings from the Lake of the Ozarks in central Missouri from K0SRE. And Rosiata, New Mexico, KG5LTL, James there. Ryan just got his first HF rig, 7300. Now waiting for his Alpha FMJ antenna. Well, look forward to hearing you on the air. Ryan KC3DLL has had his 7300 a couple of months and loves it, but searching for the right HOA-friendly antenna. That could be a long and repeated search. And Iron Man 955 is in the Ozarks and is working on his tech. Okay, Benjamin Otto. Greetings from Southeast Wisconsin from KD9HFW from Jason Phillips. You're looking for that kind of power supply, Optical Man Jeff. The TBS550D is tubes and requires B plus 400 volts. Yeah, you're going to need some transformers. Fortunately, the transformers that you need are made by a company called Hammond. 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 If you get or subscribe to or have some familiarity with the magazine called Electric Radio, you can tap into the expertise you need to put that power supply together. It's definitely something you can build yourself. Okay. Good evening from Trenton, New Jersey, from Howard Markowitz, KD2QFD. And Ranger Smith is researching mag loops. And I've got a couple of them. I've got one from, I have 2, 3, not sure. I've got the MFJ one, and I've got another one too that I can take on trips. Okay, Ryan hooked up an old MFJ antenna he found in the attic. He found the antenna and put it in the attic, listening to some great shortwave. Good, come in. Chris Peltak Sr. was given a Midland 23126 inline SWR meter. If it's Midland, it's an old CB one. My first one was a CB one too, and I had that for many years till I finally blew it out. New to him, given multiple antennas eventually, are these meters worth using? Yeah, absolutely. Although very often antenna analyzers, a lot of people today use antenna analyzers, they have built-in SWR meters, and a lot of the radios today have built-in SWR meters. My second Pfizer knocked me pretty hard for 24 hours. Yeah, mine was the Moderna. Let's see, Zyker 6701, it's going fine. Does anyone know who has the ICOM 7300 in stock? Well, Art, maybe some of the other people can reply with some answers for that. There was this great mistake made during the shutdown during the pandemic, the idea that non-essential businesses should be shut down. Well, if a business is non-essential, then it wouldn't exist. And they shut down a lot of things that shouldn't have been shut down. Now they're having supply chain problems of all kinds everywhere. Everything from lumber to computer chips to 7300s. So it's going to take, the problem with the supply chain is you're talking a 6-month process from the very beginning when you scrape up some silicon with a backhoe till you get parts and chips out. It takes months. So it's going to be a little while. Okay, best bang for the buck antenna analyzer is still in my mind the MFJ 259. I don't know what they're up to now, C or D. I've got the B model. Let's see, Art. I don't know, you could always call ICOM, see what they say. And Ryan got his from DX Engineering. Should coax feed line to dipole pass through a grounding block? Yes. Would that ground one of the shoulders to DC? Yes, to DC. It's a DC, but we're talking RF. That's what we're interested in. That doesn't care about the DC grounding. Now, the other side of the dipole is taken care of by the lightning arrestor. So you're protected on both sides. In Tucson, Arizona, KJ6KQI, and I understand it's getting warm down there now. And David Fuller, oh, howdy from Northeast Arizona. Let's see. I want to make my own ladder line. Do you know of a good calculator to figure out insulator spacing for different ohms? You don't really need a fancy calculator. The formulas are very simple, and they are in the handbook and online. Just, excuse me, sorry. Just look on the internet for or on Wikipedia for formula for calculating the impedance of ladder line, and then figure out what ohms you want. Then you can figure out what the closest wire size is, and then how far they have to be apart. It's the wire size and the spacing that determine the impedance. So if you get a thicker wire, you're going to have to space them further apart. Latest flying video, looks like training's going well. I also hope I get to solo soon. Yeah, all businesses are essential. Even that little lemonade stand, that the kids have put up down there. It's all part of the economy. And, this is the reason that, the whole communist movement in Eastern Europe and in Russia collapsed, was because a centrally planned economy just can't be done. There are too many moving parts to the economy. A spider beam 12-meter mast, the clamps and guy rings for it. I plan to put a G5 RV on it. Or is that strong enough for RG213 coax? Or should I get thinner, lighter coax? Well, if you're going to do a spider beam, and you're going to, I assume that's 20 through 10. Now, your G5 RV must be for 80 and 40 and maybe 30. Or 60, whatever. You're fine with RG8X coax at those frequencies. The losses, the additional loss is so small that you won't notice it. Now, you might think about putting RG213 on the spider beam. I've got LMR 400 on mine. Why is everybody hating on FT8? Well, there may be some very vocal people who are hating on FT8, but recent research has shown that it is by far the most popular mode in amateur radio. More popular than FM, more popular than single sideband is FT8. And, it's, shall we say, having a vogue right now. It's in vogue. That'll change with time. People will go back to single sideband to some degree, or we may find digital voice on HF. Digital voice has never really taken off on HF. There are a number of approaches for it, and they've been around for quite a few years. So, recommendations for 160-meter antenna. There is an ARRL book on, I don't see it up there. I won this book at Hamfest on 160 antennas, wire antennas for 160. The problem is length. Ideally, you want a vertical because then you can use ground wave, but the problem is you have to drastically shorten it, which makes it very high Q, so you've got to figure out a way to tune it across the whole band. Let's see, what's my favorite HF transceiver I've ever owned? Well, it's a tie between the 7300 and the Yaesu FT-3000, which I understand is now out of production. I had a 7610 that was loaned to me. I think I would stick with that over the 7300, but I couldn't afford one of those, so let's see. Any good radio scanners? Well, of course, all the radios we get in ham radio now have scanners in them, in both HF and VHF. Every radio has a scanner in it. So, have you experimented with rotating a dipole vertically? No, I haven't. Okay, and William Myers, KA8GIM, sends $25 to Channel Funds and says, "Thanks, Dave. You make my Thursday evening. Hit the thumbs up, Augies." Thank you. Real men are on 80 meter AM. Oh, yeah, I know. Just ask any of them, and they will tell you that. What, 3,800, give or take, I think is where you find a lot of AM. Now, note that your 7,300 or whatever will do AM, but you have to cut the power back to like 25 watts. And the reason is because on peaks it goes all the way to 100 watts. So it doesn't seem like it would. It would seem like it'd double. But if you double the voltage, you double the current. So it's a 5 times 4 factor on that. Any comments or analysis what happened over Denver at Centennial Airport? Yes, there was a mid-air collision yesterday. There was an empty small transport aircraft, the kind that holds about 15 people, and it was very seriously damaged. The pilot did not know what was wrong until he landed. The other was a plane that had a parachute built in, a so-called ballistic parachute, where something fires it up and then it opens. And that ballistic parachute brought that airplane safely to the ground, and nobody was hurt. It worked. For the small, it had to be a pretty small aircraft to do this, but there's a rocket built in, and it shoots that parachute way up above the aircraft and deploys it. So you can deploy that pretty close to the ground, not right on the ground, but pretty close to the ground. It was a very interesting thing. Apparently the guy in the smaller airplane wandered out of his path and hit the other guy. FT8 is popular because it makes lots of contact with no real-time intervention from the ham. Well, a little bit. Do you think running FT8 is a lot harder on the transceiver? No, not really. Just keep your power down. I kind of like FT8. I do it from time to time. The Smoking Ape is here. Hello, how are you? Low band DXing is one ARRL title. Okay. Single sideband became popular so quickly. Yes. There were people who called it sloppy sideband. Other people called it silly sideband. A lot of people called it Donald Duck, because that's what it kind of sounds like if you're listening to it on a radio that doesn't have a BFO. Now it's the standard, and there are still people who love AM. They claim, erroneously, that AM has higher fidelity. The higher fidelity is not inherent in the AM. It's the way the transmitters are configured. In a single sideband, the standard transmit bandwidth is from 300 hertz to 3000 hertz. It's 2700 hertz. Okay? And that figure, those numbers, came from the old Bell system telephone trunk lines, which had those specifications. Now, 300 hertz is higher than middle C on a piano. And so a lot of people think or thought that, that was poor quality. We can understand each other fine. AM, on the other hand, traditionally has broadcast all the way down to like 50 or 100 hertz. So you get much more of the bass, much more of the foundation of what's being transmitted. And the transmitters are designed to do that. Now, could you do that with single sideband? Absolutely, you can do that with single sideband, but we don't, because we inherited the audio standards from the Bell Telephone Company for what they call toll quality audio. And that's why we have what we have. SDR is just a way to make. Hello from Sandy, Utah. My folks are buried there. What do I think of SDR? Well, it's a technique for building radio. Done right, it's a fabulous technique for doing a radio. It will eventually supersede all superheterodyne radios. The 7300 is an almost all SDR radio. The Yaesu radios still have some mixers ahead of the conversion to the digital. They still work well. Cirrus installs BRS, that's the ballistic recovery chute, I guess, on every aircraft they manufacture. Yeah, you know, mine doesn't have it. It adds weight. A lot of the, like the Aerolite 103, which is a ultralight aircraft, they have room in their weight budget for a ballistic parachute. You know, because you're going to tend to get untrained pilots in those. I mean, I can use the GD77 as a radio scanner. Yes, you can, absolutely. My Yaesu FT-450 is listed at 25 watt carrier max power, which means it should swing 100 watts on the voice peak, so you should be safe on max power. Yes, yes, absolutely. Considering it's 100 watts PEP, single sideband, yes. 25 watts AM, fully modulated, is 100 watts peak envelope power. It's 0 watts least envelope power, and goes in between. If it's not being modulated, it's 25 watts. Okay, Cirrus airframe parachute system, yeah. Yeah, that's not a little rocket motor. It's about that big and about that long. Spark forever, there you go. There's always one. And let's see. Seen the rockets on test fire, cool to watch. You know, there's a guy by the name of Mike Patey who does, he builds his own airplanes totally from scratch, and he competes with them. And he's got these parachutes in his aircraft. Okay, let's see. Catch me. Have to be replaced. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. You got to change a lot of stuff. I just changed the compass in my, I'm going to do a video on this. The compass that came, the magnetic compass that came with my airplane, I was not able to calibrate it. And so I replaced it with a vertical compass. And then, of course, what do? The ham radio operator, I bring home, take it apart. Well, I took it apart, and I'm going to do a video on this. It's interesting what they've got inside of them. And this is just pure magnetic compass. And there was a part in there, which is the part used to calibrate it, that had not been lubricated probably in several decades. And so I lubricated it, and I got it to work, but there was one spot where the little torsion rod was wiped bare of threads, so it wouldn't work. Lo and behold, to my absolute amazement, I found a replacement part on the internet, a new one, and I ordered it. It was 80 bucks. Everything about airplanes is expensive. So I'm going to put that compass back together, and then I'll have a spare compass. But I thought I'd do a video about it because it's very, very interesting. I mean, amateur radio operators have to measure things. Why not look at how magnetic north is measured? Change my 20 meter dipole to 30 meters. There's an echo on 30 meters, nobody there. Yeah. WD4FGR in Texas. Do I do any satellite work? I do not, but there are people near me who do it. We the People says, hi, Dave. Some of the experimental AM guys out there, including the serious guys in CB, are producing some amazing quality audio. What they're doing, and you've got to be careful of this because ham radio operators are doing this too. There are no bandwidth limitations other than convention. And a convention for single sideband is a 3,000 hertz wide channel from the reference zero frequency up to the highest modulated product. The old AM radio was 5 kilohertz. In Europe, it's 4.5. And the 5 kilohertz, the radios would put a lot of bass in them, and they would sound rich and deep. The reason they sounded rich and deep was because of really bad total harmonic distortion, especially second harmonic distortion, because of the crossover point and the Class B amplifiers. All of us around the world have grown up thinking that's a very nice sound. It's not. It's badly distorted, but it doesn't sound badly distorted. It sounds good. So people will do that. They'll do 5 kilohertz wide channels. Some will do even wider. And they've taken a lot of criticism, I think rightly so, for hogging bandwidth. I mean, there's enough things going on 80 meters. Keep your station to 3 kilohertz. If you just can't bring yourself to do that, at least keep it to 5, which is the AM standard. And there's no point in making it wider than that. I mean, men have very few harmonics above about 3 kilohertz, which is, by the way, where the 3 kilohertz came from. Greetings from Seebeck, Washington. Modern urban noise is an issue, hoping a mag loop will be somewhat quieter. Play with your noise reduction, not noise blanker, but noise reduction function on your modern radio, because there's usually menu options associated with it. It is amazing what that noise reduction can do these days in getting rid of some of that noise. And since they're doing it at IF, it gets it outside the AGC loop, which is nice. So, because it used to be, you'd have the noise, it'd be taken out, but it would grab the AGC anyway, and it doesn't do that anymore. Mike Patey and his brother are pretty amazing guys. Tom B says he can't believe it. I actually answered his question. Wow. Magnetic compass is meant to be mounted horizontally. Vertical mounts always wear out because of their complexity. Yeah, eventually they will. Everything wears out. All the new pilots are dumbfounded about how important whiskey compass is. No electronics. There are people, if you put up there's still broadcast television. And if you put up an antenna, you can receive it and watch it on your TV. And a lot of kids have said, is that legal? Thought you had to pay for your TV. You're taking it off the air. You're not paying for it. Well, guess what, guys? It's always been free, and it still is to some. Now, a whiskey compass, the fluid that is in the compass, do I have the compass handy? Nope, I don't. Put it somewhere. Anyway, the compass has a little spindle inside of it, a little spindle with a jeweled bearing on top, and then the compass sits on top of that, and the thing is filled with alcohol, pure alcohol. The reason it is filled with pure alcohol is because alcohol is an incredible antibiotic, so you won't over the years have something grow in there that might make the liquid cloudy or stuff like that. So that gives it the damping in there. There's all kinds of weird things. If you turn this way, the compass will start going the other, and stuff like that. But that's why it's called a whiskey compass. During World War II, people get real friendly with the guys down in the avionics shop because they always had spare pure 200 proof alcohol to put in those compasses. F-16 has a mag compass not visible while flying. I didn't know that. How much difference is there in the output of a carbon and crystal mic? They are two entirely different kinds of mics. Carbon works on the principle of variable resistance. So you have to put a current through it, and the amount of current gets modulated by the voice. That's how the old-fashioned telephones worked, all of them. A crystal mic actually creates a voltage, which then has to be amplified a whole bunch. This is where preamps come in and stuff like that, before that signal goes down the line. What is in here, and this is the 7300, is a dynamic mic, which is basically the opposite of a speaker. It's a diaphragm and a magnet and a coil. And as the thing vibrates, it creates a voltage in the coil. It's the opposite of a speaker. You can actually use a speaker as a microphone. They're not very good at it, but they do work. I would say that crystal mics have superseded carbon mics in high fidelity use almost completely. But the carbon mics are still around. For example, in my headset for my airplane, that is a carbon mic because it is the standard, and the FAA hasn't changed anything fundamentally since the 1930s. And they're still using AM radio, and there are people who say that's because if people double, you can still kind of pick out what's going on, and that's true. But they're carbon mics and so on. They're not directly usable for ham radio. There's a lot of tradition in aircraft. Okay, R9 versus AV680. I would not get either. I'd go with the AV640. You're going to get so little of 80 meters in there, like 15 kilohertz, that unless you have a favorite net that you want to come in on, you're just getting so little of 80 meters, it's not worth it. Same on the R9. R9 is the old Cushcraft, and the AV680 is the high gain. And they're both MFJ companies, so you could put up a loop for 80 meters and get something out. Or you could get the 680 if there's just, like, say for example, you wanted to do 80 meter FT8. Yeah, you can use the AV680, set it up, because you can set up each band independently, sort of. You can set that up for FT8 on that frequency there. Let's see. Noise reduction does help, but it requires constant fiddling. I have not experienced that problem with it. I just usually set it and leave it. Now there are, you can buy like from Time Wave, from West Mountain Radio, not MFJ. I said once MFJ. They don't sell a noise reduction filter. But you can get a lot more things you can adjust, so you can really do better to pick a particular signal out. What's the best way to ground your equipment when operating off a second floor with no access to the first floor or basement? Well, ideally you still want that ground rod down below your window, and you want to run your coax down to that and the lightning arresters and then back up to your room if you can. Not always the best way for doing things. Naphtha, yeah, and alcohol does not freeze in the winter. Naphtha is that related to kerosene? It's used in lamps, I know. Accelerate north, decelerate south, yeah. I've got the compass up there. I found myself looking at it today. It would confuse me, because the compass will read your heading, tells you where you're going. But if you've got a side wind, you think you're going over there, but you're actually going over here. Whereas the same display on my Garmin G5 reads track. Track is the direction you're actually going. So there can be a big difference between the two. Petrochemicals on boats. Yeah. The avionics tech will verify the magnetic variations in aircraft and the earthline variations used for flight planning. Yes, that is true. Fortunately, I can work on my own airplane. Okay, we're getting to 25 after. But ICOM uses only electric mics, does it? Okay. There's also capacitor mics, where you get two plates like this, varying, changes the capacitance of the mic, and you can convert that into a signal too. There's lots of things. Gary Murdoch has added $20 for the tip jar. It says 73, thank you. And ribbon mics. Ribbon mics have made a resurgence in the recording studio. The ribbon mics are used for extremely high fidelity applications. They're very expensive. You know, you see the mics that the singers hold on TV, like for American Idol and stuff like that. Those are like $1,000 microphones or more. They want to get that last tiny little bit of fidelity out of them. Okay. Let's see. Does a G5 RV with ladder line require a balun to feed an ICOM 718? Well, ideally the ladder line connects to some coax, and ideally it doesn't need a tuner, but in actual practice you need a tuner. And the tuner will have a balun in it, although you won't. With a G5 RV, you feed coax out to a certain point on the ladder line, and then the ladder line goes the rest of the way. Okay, is the Heathkit SB220 worth getting fixed? Yes. I was given one that had good tubes, but the rectifier board and the capacitors need replaced. There is a sub-hobby of amateur radio for old equipment restoral. And the magazine for those people is Electric Radio. And there's an active classified ads section in there. And if you don't want to do that yourself, you can go into the classifieds and see if you can sell it to somebody who wants to replace it. Don't drink 200 proof. I don't drink at all. And yes, this is just water. Directional gyro track is based on GPS. Yes, absolutely. My little G5 is a GPS unit. And it will give you a directional gyro that will tell you the actual track you are going. So if the wind is blowing you off course, it will add that to what it shows you. Okay, because it's actually a GPS track. And I like that because when I'm coming around in the pattern and I want to stay on heading 210, if I stay on heading 210, I'll stay the same distance away from the runway. Whereas if I try to do that with just the magnetic compass, I've got wind that's not taken into account there that could be blowing me either way. Okay, naphtha, Zippo lighter fluid, lighter fraction than kerosene. Okay. Offer for sale on QRZ. That's another place you can sell it. What is the D104, carbon or crystal? I believe crystal. Ribbon mics are very fragile. That is true. An aircraft in flight almost always has some yaw moment because wind direction does not care where you're trying to go. Yes. Why did they quit making the D104? It's ancient. I have one right there. I'll get it for you here. This is the classic D104. When you think of a classic amateur radio station, often this is the microphone, sometimes called the lollipop mic. And it's on a stand right here. The mic actually comes off separately. And down in the bottom here, there's a little preamp in a 9-volt battery, and it takes the crystal output of the mic and amplifies that to go to the radio. And I have the Yaesu connector on here. When I push this in for transmit, push to talk, it also closes the circuit and turns on that preamp in here. So as long as it's not pushed, that battery will stay in there for quite a while. This is a beautiful mic. I wanted one when I was a new ham, but they had already stopped producing the D104. Okay, let's see. Any process on your engine tach in the plane? Yes, it's working now. My assistant and I went up to the airport and stayed there for 2 or 3 hours until we had that thing working. And we got it to work. A couple of ribbons. Yeah. This ones are active. Yeah. 4-pin and ham may be yesterday's news, but 11-meter radios are still weird that way. Yeah, it's crystal. That lollipop mic is crystal. Yeah, it's a classic recognizable thing. Let's go to the questions that come in. I want to talk about this one first. This is from Tom. I'm going to have to figure out a way doing the screen to do less than the whole screen. Is there a way to do that? Display capture. Display. No, it just wants to take the whole display. Okay, I'm just going to move this up a little bit. Just trying to get rid of his email address. Now let's try it. There. Okay. Screen. Hello, Dave. He actually called me, which I do not recommend. One, because I'm not terribly quick on the draw. 2, I happen to be in the middle of something. And I can't and don't consult. I've had people offer me money to fix their problem, and I don't do that. I just don't have the time to do that. It says, love YouTube videos, and then it says that he says, we wonder how what he wanted to do was start his own YouTube channel. And that's fine. You can start your own YouTube channel. Anybody can do that. What equipment do you need? For example, computer, hardware, cameras, microphones, mixing editors, software. You need some of that. Cost of production and keeping channel alive. There is no cost on YouTube. You don't have to pay to put your videos up there. Nor do you have to advertise them. Most channels go by word of mouth. The fear factor of posting videos. The fear factor for me in posting videos was the fear of criticism. I'm at the point now where I've discovered that 99% of the feedback is positive, and the rest I can ignore. You know, I was afraid people might come at me and say, 75% say this is not worth looking at. But that was not the case. I had, like I said, about 98 to 99% positive approval rate. What equipment is needed? Well, if you have nothing else, you can start with this. Your phone will take video with audio, and you can post that to YouTube. Okay, I don't use that, although I have used phone videos as parts of videos. This is my main camera. This is a Lumix. It's a G7 DMC, which is digital mobile camera or whatever. G7. I think it's been replaced by the GH5 or something like that. But this camera, although it looks like an SLR, it's not. It's an electronic viewfinder, but the viewfinder is so good and so high resolution that it doesn't matter. Plus, what you see in the viewfinder is what you get. Okay, So many times with the old SLRs, you'd compose a picture, it'd look beautiful in the viewfinder, and then it'd come out underexposed or overexposed or so on. You'll see that in the viewfinder in real time. This camera is actually made, I mean, it takes beautiful still pictures, but it's actually made for video. So that's what I use. I also have a smaller camera, which of course has gotten away from me here. It doesn't take me long to make a mess. But it's another Panasonic. It's one of those tubular things. I started with that before I got that. This one has much better picture quality than that old camera. Editing software, I use Cyberlink Power Director. It's rated generally as the #1 consumer video editor. It's even being rated #1 as a prosumer video editor. It is not a professional video editor. But then again, I'm not a professional type of a person. I'm just a YouTuber. Okay. The bigger question about putting a YouTube channel up is to ask yourself, why? Why am I putting this up? What do I have to say that needs to be said? And really working on that. A lot of the magazines, and the key magazine you want to get is a magazine called Video Maker. It's out of that hotbed of Hollywood, Chico, California, up in Northern California. To give you an idea, it was right next to the Paradise Fire a couple years ago. And that magazine will teach you kind of everything you need to know up to a certain level. And then after that, you're well enough equipped to go out on your own. They have a online magazine only called YouTube Producer or something like that that's useful if you want to go into YouTube. Now, there are other YouTubes like the Smoking Ape here watching tonight. They've all got different ways of doing their videos. They have different purposes, they have different approaches, they have different audiences, and so on. My first approach was to put up motorcycle videos. I had one of those helmet-mounted cameras, and I'd go up in the hills north of here and go dirt biking, and or down Engineer Pass and so on. And I wasn't getting a lot of response. You know, a good video might get 90 views. And I had just a few hundred subscribers. And then I started making training videos for the technician class, and poof, it became clear that's where the channel needed to pivot. And so it pivoted there, and me with it. And now I'm adding a few airplane videos, but the interest in the airplane videos is there, but it's not super high. I will eventually start a separate channel for the airplane videos, but again, I have to ask myself the question, what do I have to say that is unique about aircraft? I mean, anybody can attach a GoPro to an airplane and take videos, which is what I've done. And I've figured out how to record the audio in the airplane. And I've made some real short videos. Nobody wants to watch an hour-and-a-half flight droning along, you know, cross country. You want to see a few good pictures here and there, and any drama that might come up. So what I've been sharing so far on that channel is just my personal learning experience. And things like taking apart that compass and stuff like that. And I've been calling them my sky videos. But my real focus, in spite of all this flying and everything, is ham radio. By the way, the cooperation with the League is signed and done. It should be announced in the July QST. So, which usually comes out in June. So that's coming up. doing some interesting things there. Okay, let's go back up here and go up to the top of these forms. This is from White KM5S. I viewed our piece on the My Antenna 8010 in an inverted V configuration and liked what I saw. But what about using an My Antenna EF InFed halfwave 8010 in an inverted L configuration? That should work too. I have heard of people who do that and do that with success. So it's really very flexible. I did it in an inverted V because when I read the instruction book, it they talked about a use case, which was the inverted V, and I thought I'll try that, and it worked. It blew me away how well it worked. We just took that antenna down because I've got that little MLA30 receive-only antenna that we put up, and then I fixed the MFJ antenna and put it back up. And then shortly after starting to use it, it crumped. And so, got to fix that antenna. Get that thing taken down again, taken apart, see if there's any hope for it. The little MLA 30, 40, whatever it is, actually works pretty good. I've got most of the pieces of the video to put together on that. I just haven't put them together yet. What I've been having my assistant do, his name is Callum, not the same Callum who makes the DX Commander, and a lot younger and a lot thinner and more conventional hair. Anyway, Callum is a junior in high school, but he's very bright, and I'm teaching him to edit because that takes a huge burden off of me. And what I'm doing is recording in advance answers to viewer questions where I use a whiteboard. And so I've got the camera on me, the camera on the whiteboard, and he can now pick through that. Now, this video with the MLA receive-only antenna is going to be more difficult to edit because it's got a lot of B-roll in it. B-roll is all the stuff you put in the background while you're narrating it. Okay, and he hasn't learned to do that yet, so that's going to be his next big jump in his editing capability, is putting together a video like that. By the way, the antenna does work. So I think we've answered that. Next question. Here's an SDR video you might like.
Okay. Thank you guys for showing up tonight.
Okay, this looks like
a special guest.
it's a 1 hour and 30-minute presentation on software-defined radios. Okay. There, you can just search for this on Google. Search software-defined radio, and you will find dozens upon dozens of videos. They are very much in vogue right now. Okay, and let's see, we are at, we peaked at 245 concurrent viewers. 1,100 people have stopped by. Average watch time is 9:40. Okay, let's see, we've got, this is from Paul Rustin AC9YU. Which budget CW radio kit should I get? I'm leaning toward a Rockmite 2 20 meter for use in the daytime. Please understand that the Rockmite is a toy. It's not designed to be, you know, a serious use radio. If you want a serious use radio, get the QRP Labs. Go to QRP Labs. .com. Okay, and they've got the QCX radio. This is the mini version of it, which I think I just fried recently. I haven't had the heart to open it up and check it. This is the size that fits in your pocket for going to summits on the air and stuff like that. He says he's a scout leader. They spend time hiking, camping in parks without cell service. It's not enough to justify a subscription to a satellite communicator like the Garmin InReach Mini. I don't know, that's not that expensive, really. So I got my ham license and a Baofeng 8-watt HT with a long antenna and Ed Fong DBJ2. I'm getting an ICOM IC2730 for the car to use a trailhead crossband repeater to increase the transmit distance. That can be done. I have heard that when VHF, UHF can't get signals through, HFCW could get through. Yes. I understand that 80 meters would work better for NVIS. That is true. However, good luck putting up an 80-meter antenna in the middle of a rockfall. I was hoping to spend less than $100 on the setup. This is less than $100, but by the time you add the coax and the antenna and some poles to take along, that your scouts can help you carry up, you're going to go over the $100. Not an electrical engineer and think the Rockmind offers more assembly support than a Pixie. Pixie is, how do I put this nicely? A Pixie is a radio designed to give you some pleasure building it, after which you set it aside or throw it away. Okay? That's not a practical radio. The radios will also be used to teach youth about ham radio. The Rockmind or Pixie-sized radio would be very portable for hiking. That's what this is specifically designed for. This one right here. This is a serious 5-watt single band QRP radio that actually gives you 5 watts. It's got many, many, many built-in features. And I would recommend looking in this direction. Now, this is not a beginner's kit. If you get the QCX Plus, it comes in a much bigger container. It's the same circuit board, but the parts are spread out enough that you can actually put them together yourself. Now, you don't say anything in here about having a license. Yes, you do. AC9YU. Okay, that's an extra license. Okay, so yeah, the thing about HFCW getting through is you want to have somebody already listening on the other end so that they know that it's there, because trying to call CQ or SOS on a little rig like this, it can get lost in the literally in the noise. Okay, hope that helps. Oh wow, that's a big long one. Let's go to a shorter one here. This is from KF2YV, and this is R. Carsey. Hi Dave, I'm a pilot too and want to use a VHF UHF handheld, or maybe down the road if this is a successful mobile radio in my airplane. You cannot install a mobile radio, a ham radio, in your airplane if it is a certified aircraft. If it's a sport aircraft, yes. Or ultralight. I have a standard aviation audio panel with 2 radio inputs. I like to be able to just push a button on the audio panel, switch over to radio 2, the ham radio, talk through my headset as I normally would. Now, when you're in an aviation situation, you want to be very sure that you can always hear the aviation radio. And your ham radio communications is second to that and should not interfere with it. Now, a guy that I know, Sean McGrath, who is an Augie and a patron and a good friend, who taught me ground school over Skype during the pandemic last year, takes a handheld with him. Now, a handheld, the nice thing about the handheld, is that you're up in the pilot seat, so you got glass, so that you're not completely in a Faraday cage. Um, that handheld will have phenomenal distance capabilities because you're up in the air. And that, I think, is what you probably would want to do. Now, he has it fixed with his handheld to where it comes in through the Bluetooth so he can use his audio headset. He's got a separate push to talk button. When he presses that button, the audio goes out over the ham radio. And when he pushes his normal push to talk button, which is usually up on the yoke, then he goes out over the aircraft radio. It says the challenge, of course, is that the panel expects aviation radios to be connected on ham radios. The difference is that the microphones used are much different. Yes, believe the earphones are similar but different impedances, sorta. Can you design a circuit? Well, 2 circuits that would adapt the headphone output so the audio panel is happy. I don't know that I could. This is something that you want to talk to, what's his name, Bob Heil about. He would know all the ins and outs of this. Now, this is not the first time this has ever been done. So you can look on some of the aviators. I'm sure there's a forum somewhere that's aviators who are ham radio operators, and you'll find there may be even a commercial product or two that you can use to plug in your headset to, plug in your ham radio to, and then plug into the console in the cockpit. A microphone adapter so the ham radio is happy. If you do it with Bluetooth, that takes care of, Bluetooth audio is Bluetooth audio, so it doesn't matter what the microphones are and stuff like that. And I think that's what Sean does. I may have to do another Skype with him and do an interview to find out how he does that, because he likes to do that. He can get a simple call that he's listening on 5.2 simplex, and he can get all kinds of responses to that. So yes, it can be done. This is from Chuck Noel KN6CTK. Hi Dave, thank you for your YouTube videos, very informative. I wish there were a local, as in Grass Valley, California, mentor Elmer I could count on for instruction. Grass Valley is not all that far from Sedona, and I assure you there are ham radio clubs in the area. And you are going to need to do a little club shopping to find the one that you want. If there are not ham radio clubs, there are certainly other ham radio operators. And it takes a little gumption to get on the phone and call people blind and say, hey, I'm a new ham radio operator, you are too, can we get together and just share? You can start your own club for that matter. I said, I feel in the dark about most things ham radio, even though I've had my technician license for about 2 years. Well, watch my videos. I got plenty of them. My question is this: how do I reduce the SWR I've been observing on recently purchased Rig Expert AA35 antenna analyzers with my, okay, so we're talking HF, with my Yaesu FT-450d and a super antenna MP1 antenna I purchased last summer. Been desperately trying to get on the air. I am not familiar with that antenna. I would recommend that you spend the $80 to get the reference station antenna, which is the MFJ 2010. Although I recently ordered something from MFJ and it's on back order. Last weekend I observed SWRs from 4.8 all the way to 10 with the analyzer. What could be causing such high SWRs? 1, the antenna is not constructed or installed properly. 2, you don't have enough radials. I'm assuming this is vertical. 3, there is a short or an open in the coax or in the antenna itself where 2 parts connect together. The connection is not made sure. Okay, moving the antenna from place to place in my yard and placing and replacing the antenna radials reduced the SWR to only 4.8. What can I be missing? Go through the instructions that come with the antenna for how to tune it. Some antennas are easy to tune. Other antennas like the Butternut HF9V are a stinker to tune. Okay, you may need some help. I had to get help. My wife sat in the shack, and we actually just communicated over our cell phones. I'd touch something, step back 10 feet, and say, "What did that do?" "Well, that went too far," and we'd go back and forth like this till we finally got it done. What can I be missing? Check your connectors, check everything. It'll probably come down to one thing, and it will be, of course, the last thing you think of, because after you solve it, you won't worry about it anymore. Thank you in advance for any information and instruction you can provide. I'm not familiar with that particular antenna. The reason I suggest going with the reference antenna, it is a horizontal antenna. It does take 66 feet to put up. You could go with the DXEE from Alpha Delta, which only takes 40 feet. But it's not as good on 40 as the reference station antenna. The reason I suggest that antenna is it's gonna work. You put it up, you get it up about 20 feet in the air with those using chain link fence top rail as masts. Put two of them together, you get up about 20 feet. Use some nylon cord with some stakes to hold up your antennas, so on, and it'll work. And it's just a lot easier way than getting into it. What I see is a lot of new generals going to these expensive vertical antennas. There is, I don't know, it's ingrained in us that if we pay more, we get more, when in fact that's not the case. A dipole can give you just as good results as a vertical can. People say, well, verticals are noisier. That much, yeah. Verticals give you better DX. That much. Just a plain old dipole. I know it's not sexy because it's not $600. It's $60 or $70, and it will work very well. I recommend the reference antenna because it puts you on 40 and 20, which are the two bands that are going to give you the most results at this point in the solar cycle. As we move further into the solar cycle, another couple of years, we'll be moving to the upper bands, but you can make antennas. You can also make your own 40-meter dipole. Make it yourself. There's lots of plans on the internet for those. Hope that helps. I understand your frustration. I really do. Okay. This is a comment from Dick Page, KE0VT, about the guy who didn't want to be called an Augie, who is encouraging me to continue to use the term Augie. Thank you. This is from Micheal Miller K6K. This is a temporary call sign that he's going to have for about 2 weeks. And you can, these one-by-one call signs are not assigned to a person. They're assigned to the ARRL, which can assign them around if you want to use it for a special event station. He says, "Aloha, Dave. Can we ask for your help in promoting a K6K station? K6K is the King," now I'm going to have to look at this, Kamehameha celebration, Hawaii DX. It's a special event amateur radio station. It's going to be Friday, June 11th, so we got a little ways for this to go. For more information, you can email k6khawaii@gmail.com. So a special event coming up. That sounds like a fun one. There are lots of this. We use one here every year, try to get it every year, for there's a special event station that goes up. There's for World War II warships. Now, we don't have any World War II warships in Montrose, considering we are completely landlocked, and about the only thing you could get to float in the Gunnison or the Uncompahgre rivers would be a rubber duck. But we do have the ship's bell for a Liberty ship called the USS Montrose. And so that qualifies under the rules. And we do a special event station every year where we use this one-by-one call. And it's been very successful. Everybody wants to work a one-by-one call. It's kind of cool. Okay, this is from Rome, or Rome, KR6DDS. Hello, Dave. I have another question about grounding and bonding. Can I connect my station single point ground to the house oofer ground rod, which is about 20 feet across the other side of the garage? Yes. Although I would recommend a traditional ground rod very close to your station if you can do it. You may not be able to do it. The oofer ground is buried in the concrete slab. Concrete, think about this. Concrete is rock. A lot of ground, real ground, is rock. Okay? So if you stick a rebar all the way across, usually diagonally, a concrete pad, it makes an excellent ground connection. The oofer ground was designed by a guy by the name of Ufer, U-F-E-R, Ufer. Well, I think I would have had that changed, but he invented this back in the 50s, I think, when the Army was putting a lot of buildings and stuff out in the desert and so on, and needed good grounds and were having trouble getting good grounds. They created the oofer ground, and it works really well. So yes, it would work. It's probably also your utility ground. If you can't put in, even if you do put in a separate wire or a separate ground rod, ground your station to that, you still need to run bonding between that and the oofer ground, which would be number 6 stranded THHN copper wire with crimp type or crimp type connectors, not soldered. Or you can do the copper. There's little things you can get, and I forget the name of them, but they're pyrotechnic devices that burn some thermite and create a weld with the copper in there. I would not use one of those indoors. And besides which, the rebar is not copper, it's iron, so you've got dissimilar metals to worry about. My hangar has an oofer ground. By the way, it did get electrified. It's very nice in there. Okay, so now, if you're going to run your primary ground over to the oofer ground, that number 6 wire is great, but it's not going to cut it for an RF ground. You're going to want to run a ground strap or some braid or something like that over there, because it'd be much better at carrying the RF. If the number 6 is all you can do it. I suspect you'll be fine either way. Let's see, we are past time. I'll put that in there. We are past time, aren't we? Let me go back to the live streaming page. Oh, look at all this. Okay. Felipe Lewis has put a $15 into the chat revenue, which goes into the channel revenue. It says, thank you for your time, effort, and experience for this channel. You're certainly welcome. And one of the neat things about doing a channel like this is, when I put something on the air, I want it to be accurate, which means I have to do a lot of research, which means I learn a lot. So always the instructor learns more than others. It's likely that your flying video viewers are also your ham radio viewers. Yes, we watch you flying, not some guy flying. There you go. Okay, and I just can't help myself but explain the different parts of the aircraft and everything. Agreed, Dave's way of explaining things is a unique factor to this channel. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. UKITs, I think MFJ's taken them over too. They have some little things too. Naphtha is, okay, highly flammable, not good for the lungs, or, yeah. Pixie is less than a $5 radio. It's cute. I think it puts out a tiny fraction of a watt on only one frequency. And if you're lucky, the receiver might work too. Naphtha is pretty close to turpentine. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, QCX Plus is a bit more with the case. Well, it's bigger. Okay. Managed a two-way QSO and a Pixie with a 3-meter 1-inch mag loop up in the air above the roof. Good. Civil Air Patrol has that set up in their aircraft. Oh, now there's a place to look for it. Okay. QCX is my next QRP purchase. Yeah, I've got too many QRP radios. I got literally a stack of them over there. Let's see. Well, kerosene is the compass fluid of the USAF, is it? Okay. Well, it's jet fuel. White kerosene. Okay, that would be highly purified kerosene. So many hams have asked about using surplus David Clark headsets that they publish an adapter schematic. Well, that would be good to look at. I would need to find that. If you can send me a URL for that, I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, there's lots of good stuff in here. Okay. Optical Man Jeff KE0OG sends $15 to the channel funds. Who needs another ham radio channel when we have Dave? Well, there are lots of other ham radio channels, and a number of the principals from those channels happen to be in this chat right now, like the Smoking Ape and so on and so forth. They have a different take on different things, and some tend to be much more operational. Others are more product comparison. Others are looking for, the usual, like antenna shootouts and stuff like that. And it has some very entertaining channels. And I am not, by any means, the biggest channel on ham radio. I'm about third or fourth. So that's why I want to get up above 100,000. That's rarefied territory there. Okay, greetings from Delaware. By your students, you'll be taught. Yes, absolutely. Naphtha was also called white gas. Okay, I know what white gas is. Yeah. A foot linked it to my house. The wire's not easy to work with, but durable. Yes. Pixie on 15 volts will do a watt. Ooh. Why did you select 20 feet for my hex beam height? Because, very simply put, that was the biggest piece of aluminum I could get in a pipe format. I went down to Reclam Metals, which is a recycling center that they also had. They've got all kinds of stuff. And they never had the same stuff twice, but they had a big stack of 20-foot long sticks, which is, the stick is the full length of the pipe as it's made. It's 20-foot long. It's Schedule 40. So think a piece of Schedule 40 PVC pipe. It's exactly the same, except it's aluminum. So it's got nice thick walls, and that is a very strong pipe for a mast, and yet light enough to handle. And so it's fully guide, and I had a lot of help putting it up because it was, the hex beam is not a small antenna, and had all sorts of fun putting that thing up. But it's up and it works, and I've used it recently, so there you go. Okay. All right. We are past time, as usual. It's almost getting like normal to go past time. Thank you all for those of you who have dropped by this evening. 1,432 people have dropped by. 203 concurrent viewers right now. We peaked at 245. And I will go ahead and set up the live stream for next week, and which will be same time, same place. And again, send your questions. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Now, I am answering questions two ways. One, here in this forum. Two, I go through the questions and make some videos. There's soon going to be a third way that I'll be answering those, which I'll get to when I get to it. I'm not quite ready for that. But I am trying to answer your questions. A couple things to keep in mind. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Now, there are insincere questions which are designed to be dumb, but if it's a sincere question, you don't know the answer to the question. It is not a dumb question to ask. And I don't want people saying, well, if you were really a ham, you'd know the answer to that. Well, there was a time you didn't know the answer to that. So, be nice, be helpful, be genuine with people. So I will try to answer questions, even if they're really simple. I'll try and put an answer together for the question, okay? After all, the title of the channel is Ask Dave. So, and the alternate title is Ham Radio Answers. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I hope that it's helpful. I really hope it's helpful. So thank you so very much for your support, for your subscriptions, for your financial support of this channel that enables me to do things like go buy these little things and stuff like that, and helps me in so many other ways. And yes, it does help me fly. And I just love you guys. I really do. So until we next meet, 73.